Welcome to Fiction Mage. Tonight, we invite you to settle in, breathe deeply, and begin a quiet journey through a world of imagination, memory, and beloved characters. Let the story guide you gently, one scene at a time, toward rest. This is an unofficial, transformative story, written and assembled by a human author with the help of artificial intelligence. All original characters and worlds belong to their respective creators. Now, make yourself comfortable and enjoy the reading. If this story helped you relax, dream, or simply enjoy a peaceful moment, please like the video and subscribe to Fiction Mage for more stories. During our last meeting, Bluebell shared a quiet lunch with Liana in Central Square, only for their peaceful moment to be interrupted by an announcement from Mayor Bellinger. The town had hired Adrian Vale, a mercenary from Junon, to protect the roads from the growing monster threat. Bluebell was unsettled by his confidence, his scar, and the way he seemed to notice her. Back at the Demoiselle Café, she tried to return to her work, but Adrian's words lingered in her mind. Now, on to the next chapter. The Blue Flower, a fan fiction from Final Fantasy VII. Part 1. The Tiny Bud. Chapter 5. Festival Business. Thursday began with carrot muffins behaving better than people. Bluebell decided this before the sun had fully climbed over the canal roofs, while the first batch cooled beneath a square of clean linen and filled the Demoiselle Café with cinnamon, brown sugar, and the faint green sweetness of grated carrot. The muffins had domed properly. Their tops were split in modest golden seams. None had sunk in the middle. None had clung to the tin with the petty spite that sometimes took hold of baked goods when one needed them most. She stood over them with the seriousness of a doctor, pronouncing a difficult recovery. A crumb rested on her thumb from the one she had sacrificed for inspection. It was warm, tender, and properly spiced. Good. If carrots, flour, eggs, and heat could be persuaded into order after yesterday afternoon, then perhaps the rest of the world could be persuaded as well. Perhaps. From the dining room came the scrape of a chair and Paco's voice saying, "Monsieur, that is not a customer seat." A soft thump answered him. Nor is it a throne. Bluebell lifted the linen farther over the muffins, as if they might hear scandal and collapse. "He knows the difference," she called. "He simply prefers one." Paco appeared at the kitchen doorway, with Monsieur tucked beneath one arm like an offended parcel. The tuxedo cat's green eyes accused everyone in the room of crimes against sunlight. A seashell charm clicked at Paco's wrist when he shifted his grip. "He has chosen table 3, Paco said. "He says the morning light improves his coat." Bluebell tried to be funny. "Tell him, table 3 is reserved for people who order coffee." Paco looked down at the cat. "You heard her? Begin earning wages." Monsieur flicked his tail against Paco's ribs with royal contempt. Bluebell took him and set him on the windowsill near the flower boxes instead. He gave the muffins one wounded glance, then settled into the sun and pretended this had been his plan all along. Paco leaned against the doorframe. His dark hair was tied loosely, still damp at the temples, and the easy curve of his mouth made it clear he had slept well enough to be dangerous. "The muffins look excellent. Did the carrots apologize?" he asked. "For what?" Bluebell wondered. Whatever they did yesterday to deserve such discipline. I heard the grater from the dining room. It sounded personal. Bluebell reached for the tray of cups, making her best not to give a cold look to Paco. Carrots cannot offend me. That is not a denial, he pointed. It is a fact, she insisted. Paco smirked, knowing how to tease her. Facts can wear disguises. She finally gave him one look, efficient and flat as a pressed napkin, and carried the cups past him into the dining room. If he laughed, he had the grace to do it behind her. Breakfast service stitched the morning together. Coffee was poured dark and fragrant into thick white cups. Butter knives flashed beside toast. 2 travelers from the inn split a muffin and asked whether they might buy another dozen for the road. Bluebell wrapped 6 instead, because roads, even ordinary ones, did not improve pastries by shaking them in a satchel. A regular from Bellwood Variety Store claimed the corner table and complained with deep satisfaction that the summer festival posters had been printed in a shade of orange no civilized flower would tolerate. The festival had been hovering over Kalm for days, leaving threads everywhere, bunting folded near the square, lantern frames under repair, children arguing over performers. It belonged to early summer as surely as strawberries and warm stone. This year, though, every bright thing carried a shadow. Merchants discussed roads while pretending to discuss prices. Travellers asked about leprechauns before asking about gondola rides. Bluebell wiped a ring of coffee from the counter. Circles, not lines. Let the cloth move smoothly. Let the day have edges. Laris came from the back room with the account book under his arm. His grey hair had escaped its tie in 2 fine wisps near his temples, and his expression held that careful calm he used whenever the morning had already given him too many numbers. Bluebell, did Oliver's boy deliver the eggs? Before 7, she answered. 2 dozen large, 1 dozen small. He said the southern path is still muddy. Muddy? Laris asked with surprise. That was the polite word, she specified. Paco passed behind Bluebell with a tray. The impolite word had more mud in it. Laris smiled faintly. Then we will not ask him to come again before Monday. If the festival committee wants extra pastry, they may discover the romance of logistics. Have they asked? Bluebell said. Not formally, Laris started. But Fritz Bellinger doesn't need a door to enter a room. He starts arriving 2 days before his feet do. The brass bell over the front door rang. Paco looked at the door, then at Laris. Should I applaud the prophecy? Mayor Fritz Bellinger entered the Demoiselle Café with the polished cheer of a man who had never considered whether a room might be busy before he needed it. He wore a pale summer jacket, a blue waistcoat, and a smile that seemed to have been brushed to a civic shine. A folded packet of papers rested beneath his arm. Street dust clung to the edges of his boots, though he stepped with such confidence that even dust looked briefly employed by him. Laris Parks, he called. Kalm's finest morning to Kalm's finest establishment. Bluebell straightened before she meant to. Courtesy rose through her by reflex, smoothing her face and setting her hands into service. The lunch rush had not yet begun, but every minute already had a job. Bellinger, she suspected, had chosen this moment because he liked an audience before the audience arrived. Laris closed the account book without haste. Good morning, Mayor. Coffee? A tempting offer, but business first. Pleasure immediately after, if your daughter has not hidden every muffin from public life. They are available to paying citizens, Bluebell said. Bellinger turned his smile on her. Excellent. A town remains strong when its bakers understand both generosity and revenue. Paco coughed behind his tray. It might have been laughter if laughter had learned manners at the last instant. The mayor removed his hat and set it against his chest. I come on behalf of the festival committee, the Merchants Association, and naturally, the grateful stomachs of all visitors who will soon discover that Kalm without the Demoiselle Café would be a body without a heart. Bluebell's professional smile held. In her mind, grateful stomachs became tasks: flour, butter, eggs, stall cloth, permits, prices, change, and whether Paco could be trusted near ribbons. You are here about the summer festival, Laris said. Precisely, retorted Bellinger. This year, I would like the demoiselle more involved. Not only the usual luncheon service for travellers, though that will be essential, of course. I mean a special tourist menu during the day, and a stall in the square during the evening celebrations. Something warm, local, memorable. A taste of calm beneath the lanterns. Through the window, the canal carried sunlight past the flower boxes. Bluebell could picture festival night at once. Paper lanterns above the square. Musicians near the fountain. Children with sugared fingers. Tourists turning slowly because every corner had been arranged to enchant them. Bellinger spread a rough map of the square on the counter. Performers, music, dancers, card tables, and food stalls had been marked in neat blocks. He tapped a space between Bellwood and Stamps Terrace. I want you here, where visitors flow strongest. Laris studied the map. That is a large stall. A prominent stall, Bellinger corrected pleasantly. Prominence is respect wearing a roof. Prominence requires staff, Laris pointed out. And Kalm will support its pillars, Bellinger assured. We can provide a permit without fee, 2 trestle tables, and lantern hooks. I am discussing a small ingredient allowance with the Merchants Association. The final number is not yet heroic, but it may be persuaded into decency. Paco set down the tray near the service shelf and drifted closer, with the air of someone who had accidentally wandered into municipal history. Will there be musicians near the food stalls? Naturally, Bellinger said. Music reminds tourists to buy things with greater rhythm. Then the lemon biscuits should charge admission, said Paco, laughing. The mayor laughed too, as if he had ordered wit with his coffee. Spoken like a man of enterprise. We need that spirit. These past few days have given certain people the unfortunate habit of whispering. Caravans delayed, merchants anxious, visitors asking questions before they have tasted a single tart. The best answer to unease is visible confidence. Lanterns, full tables, good food. A town that dances cannot be mistaken for a town afraid. Bluebell heard the careful turn of it. Monsters became unease. Damaged chocobos became delays. Fear was not denied, only dressed until it could pass through the square under festival colours. Still, there was something strange in the way danger could be sugared. A leprechaun did not become smaller, because the mayor had given it a better word. Bluebell, Laris said, looking toward her. What could we prepare for standing service without losing the kitchen? She should have needed time. She did not. Food moved in her mind more honestly than conversation. Small cheese and herb quiches, lemon biscuits, berry tartlets if Oliver's strawberries hold, savoury hand pies, mushroom and onion perhaps, or potato with rosemary, honey tea in the afternoon, lemonade by evening. Nothing with cream outside after sundown, unless you want tourists remembering us for the wrong reason. Paco placed one hand over his heart. A merciful policy. Bellinger beamed. There, you see? This is why I came. The demoiselle does not merely feed Kalm. It explains Kalm to itself. Bluebell lowered her eyes to the map. She noted the stall position, the distance from the well, the path customers would take, the problem of carrying hot trays across crowded stone. Practical matters were clean, little stones in the hand. Of course, Bellinger continued, his voice brightening with a second purpose, a festival is only as reassuring as the peace around it, which brings me to the other reason I stopped by. Only then did Bluebell realize the mayor had not entered alone. Adrian Vale stood just inside the door, half hidden by Bellinger's arriving confidence and the angle of the coat rack. Now the canal light found him fully. Dark brown hair, steel blue eyes, a pale scar across his left eyebrow, a dark coat over light armor, and a broadsword at his back, with the calm weight of an argument already won. Yesterday, in the square, he had belonged to speeches and crowd noise. Here he stood on the demoiselle's stone floor, beneath Laris's shelves, in reach of the brass bell and the chalkboard menu. Her hand found the edge of the counter. Polished oak, familiar, solid, innocent. Bellinger turned with theatrical warmth. Mr. Vale, forgive me. I have nearly allowed muffins to upstage you. Adrian stepped forward. His boots carried dust from the square, and a darker smear near one heel that might have come from a road outside town. Good, Bluebell thought with unreasonable relief. He was not made entirely of confidence. He had mud on him. I would not challenge the muffins, Adrian said. His voice was steady, lower than Bellinger's, without the mayor's polished bounce. They have the advantage of smelling useful. Paco made a small sound that might have meant approval. Laris came around the counter, courteous and open. Adrian Vale, I presume, Laris Parks. Welcome to the demoiselle. Adrian removed one glove before taking Laris's offered hand. It was a small gesture, unnecessary and therefore noticeable. Thank you, sir. I have heard enough about the café this morning to suspect the mayor is either very loyal or very hungry. Both, Laris said. In Kalm, they often arrive together. Their handshake was brief and sincere. Bluebell watched her father's face as it opened with its usual generous welcome, and something tightened in her chest. Adrian was being admitted too easily into warmth she had not prepared to share. Bellinger clapped Adrian lightly on the shoulder. Mr. Vale is the young man I mentioned yesterday, though I imagine half the town has mentioned him since. From Junon, capable, honourable, and already committed to making the roads safer for commerce. Hiring him was one of those decisions that proves a town can act swiftly when its leadership recognizes necessity. Adrian accepted this tribute with the expression of a man enduring embroidery on a coat he had not ordered. The leprechauns will not care who recognized what. Which is why they will be dealt with, Bellinger said. And when merchants see action, confidence returns. Confidence brings visitors. Visitors bring revenue. Revenue keeps lanterns lit and kitchens busy. It is a circle. Some circles are traps, Bluebell said, before she could stop herself. It was quiet enough that only those nearest the counter heard. Laris's eyes moved to her. Paco, who had been reaching for a stack of small plates, paused with one hand in the air. Bellinger blinked once, then chose to smile. A practical mind at work. I admire that. We must make certain ours is the useful sort of circle. Bluebell felt heat creep under the collar of her dress. Her manners hurried to sweep the footprint away. I meant only that costs move in circles as well, if we are not careful. Naturally, Laris said, saving her without making it visible. We will review numbers before committing. Of course, said Bellinger, as he was gathering the map with a rustle. But first, proper introductions. Mr. Vale should know the family whose food he will no doubt depend upon while protecting our roads. He has met Kalm in speeches and handshakes. It is time he met it in bread. Adrian's gaze shifted to Bluebell. She knew that look now, not well, but enough to recognize the steadiness of it and the irritation it produced in her pulse. Miss Parks, he said. Mr. Vale, she answered with a dry tone. Bellinger glanced between them with bright interest. You have met. Yesterday, Bluebell answered. In the square. Briefly, Adrian added. Excellent, Bellinger said. Then the ice is already broken. Bluebell thought of yesterday's handshake, Liana's terrible imitation on the walk back, and the carrot muffins born from the need to escape both. Broken ice, in her opinion, was dangerous. People slipped on it. The mayor made a small presenting gesture, as if the script required everyone to repeat what had already happened for the comfort of the room. Laris looked toward Bluebell with mild encouragement. Adrian, perhaps out of courtesy, began to remove his other glove. Bluebell did not move. Her hand remained on the counter, fingers resting near a dusting of flour that had escaped from Paco's sleeve. She could feel Laris watching her. She could feel Paco watching Laris watch her. The whole room seemed suddenly arranged around one absent handshake. We have already met, she said again. Bellinger's smile paused at its edges. Yes, but there's no harm in another greeting. A town is built on such courtesies. Bluebell looked at Adrian. It would have been safer to give him her hand. Yet something in her refused. He was here now, inside the demoiselle, standing in a room she had not agreed to open. Her voice, when it came, was calm. Too calm. Do you spend all your time shaking hands, Mr. Vale? Or do you also hunt leprechauns between introductions, like you were required to do? The silence that followed was small and complete. A spoon stopped against a saucer at the corner table. Paco's seashell charm gave one tiny click as his hand lowered. Bellinger's smile did not vanish, but it seemed to forget its next instruction. Laris drew a breath that might have become her name if he had decided to spend it. Bluebell regretted the question instantly, which did not make it less hers. Then Adrian laughed. It broke from him with genuine surprise, warm and bright. The laugh did not punish her. Worse, it rescued her, turning the sharpness in the air until no one could pretend it had drawn blood. That, Adrian said, still smiling, is fair. Monster hunting should outrank handshaking. Paco lowered his head over the plates. His shoulders moved once. Bluebell's ears burned. Adrian slipped his glove back on instead of offering his hand again. I promise the leprechauns have most of my attention. The northern road this afternoon, then the grassland bend near Oliver's farm tomorrow, if the tracks are as fresh as reported. And if I take the head of a leprechaun, troublesome enough to deserve announcement, Miss Parks, you will be the first to know. The words should have sounded ridiculous. They were almost ridiculous. Yet he delivered them with such mild gravity that Bluebell could not decide whether he was teasing her accepting a formal commission, or both at once. Bellinger recovered with admirable speed. There, you see, priority, competence, good humour. Kalm could ask for no better combination. Kalm might ask for fewer monsters, Parko said quietly. And we shall grant that request as swiftly as possible, Bellinger replied, pointing at him as if Parko had made a campaign promise on the mayor's behalf. Laris gave Bluebell a look then, surprised and curious in a fatherly way that made her want to retreat faster than anger would have. Her edge had appeared in public, and now she felt visible in all the wrong shapes. I should check the pastry, she said. Bluebell, Laris began. The lunch rush will start soon, pointed out Bluebell, as she wiped her hands on her apron, though they were already clean. Mayor Bellinger, I will write a preliminary festival menu by this afternoon, if that helps. Splendid, Bellinger said, pleased to return to paper. Yes, splendid. Adrian inclined his head. Thank you, Miss Parks. She did not trust herself with another answer. She took the stack of empty cups from the counter and carried them into the kitchen, with the careful dignity of a woman transporting fragile evidence away from a scene. The kitchen heat met her like an ally too loyal to ask questions. Copper pans glimmered above the stove. The prep table waited with onions, herbs, potatoes, and pastry. Here, knives had handles, and tasks had beginnings. Bluebell set the cups down. One rattled against another. She steadied it with both hands. Ridiculous. She had spoken to a hired mercenary in front of her father and the mayor, as if she were Liana after 2 glasses of festival wine. Worse, Adrian had laughed kindly, leaving her nowhere respectable to place her irritation. The kitchen door swung inward. Parko entered with a stack of plates, set them beside the service hatch, and said nothing for nearly 3 full seconds. This restraint was so unlike him that Bluebell became suspicious at once. Do not, she said. I have not, he answered. You are preparing to, Bluebell said, lifting her index in the air. Parko put a hand on his heart. Preparation is the soul of service. She reached for the knife. Parko. He lifted both hands. I was only going to say that Mr. Vale has a triumphant way of doing very little. He stands near a door, and suddenly half the room believes road safety has developed shoulders. Bluebell cut an onion in half with more force than necessary. Mayor Bellinger believes applause is a form of infrastructure. True, Parko admitted, but the mercenary helps. He has a look. Bluebell gritted her teeth. Most people have a look, otherwise finding them would be difficult. Parko leaned against the table, amusement warming his face. His look comes with a sword. His sword is for leprechauns, apparently, Bluebell added with a touch of sarcasm. When he is not occupied with greetings, I mean. This time Parko did laugh, though he tried to fold it into a cough and failed. Bluebell gave him her best glare. Parko, unfairly familiar with all its weak points, survived. It was a good question, he said. It was rude, she admitted. Parko tried not to make her feel guilty about it. Those can be cousins, she adopted a resilient tone. Not in this café. In this café, even rude things arrive with proper plates. Parko softened then, just a little. He did not seem offended. That may be a character flaw, she suggested. Possibly, Parko said. Or he liked being treated as a man with a job instead of the mayor's parade banner. Bluebell sliced the onion into thin crescents. The knife moved quickly, cleanly. You are unexpectedly charitable, Parko smiled mockingly. I contain multitudes before noon. Afternoon, mostly hunger Despite herself, she almost smiled. The almost was dangerous enough. She turned to the herbs instead and began stripping thyme leaves from their stems. From the dining room, Bellinger's voice rose in a polished wave. Adrian answered, quieter, too low for Bluebell to catch. That was another irritation. A voice heard indistinctly invited the mind to lean toward it. Paco reached for the potato basket. Do you want me to serve their table when the rush starts? No, she simply answered. That was quick, he pointed out to her. Avoidance would be obvious, Bluebell stated bluntly. More obvious than auditing a mercenary? Paco asked, still almost laughing. She pointed the time stem at him. I did not audit him. No, you improved municipal accountability, said Paco with sweet irony. Bluebell set the time down. We have orders to prepare. Quiches first. The noon table will want 2 salads. The tourist by the window asked about soup if it is ready. And if the mayor stays through lunch, he will require something he can praise loudly. Paco smiled. A muffin with a podium? A savory tart, she corrected. Paco raised a hand, like he couldn't disagree. Less democratic, but likely tastier. They worked. The rhythm returned. Bluebell rolled pastry while Paco sliced potatoes. Butter softened under her fingers. Herbs bruised green and fragrant. Orders arrived in 1s and 2s. Then in a brighter rush, as Kalm discovered it was hungry. For a while, Bluebell nearly forgot the shape of Adrian's laugh. Nearly was becoming an exhausting word. At noon, the demoiselle filled. The terrace doors stood open to the canal, and voices moved in and out with a mild breeze. Monsieur abandoned the window-sill in disgust after a child tried to ask his opinion on the festival dances, then relocated beneath the counter, where feet were less curious. Bluebell stepped back into the dining room with a tray of quiche slices and cucumber salad balanced on her forearm. Her face had arranged itself again. Smile, not too wide. Shoulders relaxed. Plates placed from the left where possible. Tea poured without splash. Questions answered before they ripened into complaints. Mayor Bellinger had claimed a table near the center, with Adrian opposite him, and Laris seated briefly at the side, though Laris rose whenever the café needed him. The mayor was showing the festival map to anyone who slowed near his chair. He had already acquired an audience of 2 tourists, the Bellwood customer, and a boy who seemed interested only in whether fire swallowers were subject to permits. Miss Parks, Bellinger called as she approached. Tell them what you proposed. Hand pies, tartlets, quiches, the very shape of hospitality. Food usually has a shape, Bluebell said, before caution could review the sentence. Adrian looked down at his cup. His mouth moved at one corner. Laris, standing behind Bellinger's chair, covered his own smile by adjusting a spoon. Bluebell placed a slice of cheese and a herb quiche before the mayor. Small items will be easier for the festival crowd. People can walk with them. It will also prevent too many dishes from vanishing into the square. Practical and charming, Bellinger declared. You see why we need her? Bluebell set Adrian's plate down last. He had ordered the carrot muffin and coffee, which struck her as a deliberate act, until she remembered that customers often ate what smelled good without considering her private symbolic difficulties. Thank you, he said. Of course, she answered plainly. His gaze lowered to the muffin. Should I be warned? Bluebell frowned. About the muffin? It survived your discipline. I would hate to mishandle it, Adrian answered, obviously trying to be witty. Paco, passing behind Bluebell with coffee, made a sound suspiciously close to a strangled laugh. Bluebell kept her face composed through effort worthy of a military campaign. Eat it before it cools. That is the full instruction. Clear and actionable, Adrian said, mimicking a military salute. We prefer competence in this establishment, insisted Bluebell. He smiled at her. So I gathered. For one peculiar instant, the noise of the café thinned around them. Bellinger continued speaking. Cups clinked. The child asked whether fire swallowing required insurance. Yet Bluebell heard only the mildness in Adrian's voice, and the echo of his earlier promise, the first to know, as if levrickin heads and festival muffins had become entries in the same absurd account. She moved away before the account could grow. The rush thickened. There were tarts to cut, soup bowls to carry, a tourist who wanted to know whether the canal fish were decorative, and an argument at table 4 over whether Queen's blood required genius or merely devotion. Adrian remained seated more often than not, listening more than performing. That, Bluebell decided, was inconveniently sensible of him. Once, near the counter, he stood to let an older woman pass and moved his sword aside without fuss. The gesture lasted less than a breath. Bluebell noticed it anyway. After the heaviest part of lunch had passed, Laris found her in the narrow space between the counter and the kitchen, where she was writing festival menu possibilities on the back of a flower invoice. Bluebell, she added lemon biscuits beneath berry tartlets. If we do hand pies, we need sturdier wrapping paper. Waxed, if Bellwood has enough, and twine, not ribbon. Ribbon slips. Bluebell, her father repeated. The second time, her name carried no command, only a hand laid gently on a closed door. She stopped writing. Laris stood with one hip against the counter, tired at the eyes but kind. Behind him, Bellinger was gathering his papers. Adrian had risen and was helping the Bellwood customer retrieve a dropped glove from beneath her chair. Parker was at the far table with a coffee pot, pretending not to watch anyone. Are you all right? Laris asked. Yes, she answered, evading the subject. He did not accept the answer at once. He never did when she gave it too quickly. That was unlike you. Her fingers tightened around the pencil. I know. I am not angry, Laris said in a fatherly tone. That almost makes it worse, admitted Bluebell. A smile touched his mouth. I would rather you be sharp than silent if something troubles you. But choose where you place the point. People bleed in different ways. Bluebell looked at the invoice. Her handwriting had grown smaller with each menu item. He laughed. He did, said Laris. That was not the proper response, she added. Laris placed a supportive hand on her shoulder. It may have been the kind one. She considered arguing and could not find a clean path through it. The dining room was thinning now, customers settling into coffee, all returning to the square. Bellinger's voice had moved toward the door. Adrian stood near him, gloved again, coat catching a narrow panel of sun. Bellinger approached the counter with renewed brightness. Laris, my friend, I leave encouraged. Miss Parks, your menu will be the talk of the festival before the first lantern is lit. Menus do not talk, Bluebell said. Then, after the smallest pause, but thank you, Mayor. Bellinger decided this was excellent and laughed. Dry wit. Kalm produces wonders in every field. Mr. Vale and I must return to the square before the afternoon slips away. Matters of route safety, postings, and a mayor's eternal paperwork. Adrian stepped beside him. Thank you for lunch. and the instruction about the muffin. "Of course," Bluebell answered, trying to use a softer tone this time. "I will be on the northern road until evening. If the Levricans prefer action to introductions, I will try not to disappoint you." Laris glanced at Bluebell. Paco became intensely interested in wiping a table already clean. Bluebell folded the flour invoice in half. "Try not to disappoint the merchants, Mr. Vale. They hired you before I was consulted?" Adrian's smile warmed, quiet and controlled, which did not make it safer. Accurate again. "Good afternoon, Miss Parks." "Good afternoon, Mr. Vale." The bell rang when they left. Its bright tremble lingered after the door closed, as if the brass itself needed a moment to decide what had happened. For several breaths, the Demoiselle Café seemed to be listening to the space they had left behind. Then a customer asked for more honey. The child near the window knocked over a spoon, and Monsieur emerged from beneath the counter to inspect whether the departing mayor had dropped anything edible. The world resumed with all its usual demands. Bluebell preferred it that way. She returned to the kitchen carrying the invoice, 2 empty cups, and 1 plate marked only by muffin crumbs. Paco followed with the coffee pot. He said nothing until the door swung shut behind them. "Northern Road," he said. "Yes," Bluebell answered plainly. "Roads are where road problems happen." "And you will be the first to know," emphasized Paco with a mocking tone. She set the cups in the basin. "Only if the mayor does not announce it to the square, the merchants, and 3 decorative shrubs first." Paco grinned, then seemed to think better of pushing too hard. He came to stand beside her at the prep table and picked up the pencil. "Hand pies, quiches, tartlets, biscuits, lemonade, honey tea. Do we dare add almond cakes, or does my past condemn me forever?" "Forever is a long time," answered Bluebell, happy the conversation was going back to business. Paco clasped his hands in a gesture of prayer. "So, there is hope." "There is supervision," she corrected. Paco put a hand on his forehead. "Cruel cousin of hope?" Bluebell added almond cakes with a question mark. The list looked ordinary, almost comfortingly so. Flour, fruit, herbs, cups, paper, festival stall. Practical things waited to be commanded, and she was good at that. What she could not do, apparently, was prevent the outside world from opening the brass bell door and stepping into her carefully polished room. Laris called for 2 teas. Paco took the cups. Bluebell tied her apron again, though it had not loosened. The knot sat firm against her waist. First pull, cloth. Second pull, day. It held. It simply did not seal as much as it used to. She slid the festival menu beneath a clean saucer, so the terrace breeze would not carry it away, then turned toward the oven. Heat could be judged. Pastry could be watched. A stall could be planned with enough care. The door, Bluebell was beginning to understand, had its own opinions. This is the end of Chapter 5 of The Blue Flower, a fan fiction in the universe of Final Fantasy VII. We hope you enjoyed your time with us. Like and subscribe if you wish to support our channel, and let's meet very soon for the next chapter. Take care of yourself and be kind to others.